So this is the run through of paper 2. My class are busily working through paper 1. Remember, this is different questions to the ones you've been doing, but we just want to use the same process. So can you apply that process? So 140 as a product of its prime factors. So I'm going to write 140 at the top. I'm going to say that's 2 times 70. Let me see that pen okay. 2 times 70, get a darker pen. 2 times 70, which is 70 can be 35 times 2. 2 is a prime number, and my 35 is 5 times 7, so that gives me that. So product of its prime factors, sorry, I'm 2 times 2 times 5 times 7, and I'm going to go 2 squared times 5 times 7. I'm also going to be controversial. For the first time in these videos, I'm going to use a different calculator. I'm going to use this style of calculator. Now, if I wanted to do this without writing out my machine, I could literally just type in also 70 and press equals or execute. And then down here where it says format, so press that format button, and I could scroll down to where it says prime factor. Can you see that okay? I'm scrolling down to where it says prime factor. Hopefully you can see that. And that gives me that. So it's 140, sorry. So 140 equals. And then format. And scroll down to where it says prime factor. 2 squared times 5 times 7. The lowest common multiple are 40 and 15. So again, I'm going to use that function on my calculator. So I'm going to type in 40 and equals. So 40 is 2 cubed times 5, and 15 is 3 times 5. Then I'm going to have this one. So in my diagram, I'm going to have 2, 2, 2 and 5. And this one I'm going to have 3 and 5. So if I want to overlap those two diagrams to make my Venn diagram, I've got 14 and 15. 5 goes in the middle because that's in both circles. And I'm left with a 2, 2, 2 on that side, 2, 2, 2, and a 3 on this side. So my lowest common multiple will be the union of those two sets. So I'm going to overlap those two things, and I have 2 times 2 times 2 times 5 times 3. I can type that into my calculator. If I just leave it as that, that is a correct answer. If I type it into my calculator, I get a correct answer of 120. And question 2. Right, Mia, Nick and Phil share £7,200. So I've got Mia, Nick and Phil. It says it in that order, so Mia gets 5 shares, Nick gets 3 shares and Phil gets 2 shares. So in total that's 10 shares. So I'm going to take my £7,200, I'm going to split it between my 10 shares, and I get 720 per share. So Mia ends up with 5 lots of 720, Nick ends up with 3 lots of 720, and Phil ends up with 2 lots of 720. So hopefully I've changed my settings so you can see this a bit better. 5 times 720, which gives me 3,600, half the money. 3 times 720, and that gives me 2,160, and 2 times 720, and that gives me 1,440. Now do notice that I'm not trying to do these in my head. I'm trying to do it slowly, trying to write down everything I'm doing, so if I make a mistake I can still get method marks. Right. Shay will cover the shaded area with grass. Grass seed is right. So first off I'm going to work out the shaded area. Now in my head, before I do anything else, I'm going to think, how do I do that? I'm going to imagine a full triangle, and I'm going to subtract the area of the circle, and that's going to give me my shaded area. So my triangle would be half of the base, which is 18, times by the height, which is 15. So I'm going to just type that into the calculator. A half times the base times that height, and that gives me 135 meters squared. Then I've got the circle. Well, actually my diameter is 8 meters, so my radius will be 4 meters. So my area will be pi times 4 squared. So pi times 4 squared. And that gives me 16 pi. And if I wanted that as a decimal, that gives me about 50.265. So I'm going to do my 135, subtract that answer. Now if you notice I'm trying to use the answer button, which is just here on this calculator, that means I don't need to worry about rounding in any form. So I know the area is about 84.73 meters squared, 84.73 meters squared. So I'm getting marks as I go. So if I've now got that, my 84.73, that is my area. I'm now going to work out, well, how many bags do I need? So I'm going to take my 84.73 and I'm going to divide it by 15 meters squared. Divide that by 15 meters squared, and that gives me, I need about 5.64 bags. 5.64 bags. So how many bags would I need to buy? Need to buy 6 bags, and there'll be a bit left over. Okay, so that's how that question would work out. 6 bags, and I'll have a bit left over. So 6 on that. Answer that. Part B says, show finds that the bag actually covers an area of 13 meters squared. Well, let's just check if that makes any difference. So I'm just going to go back up to my original number. So my area was 84.73. We've got that written down before. I've saved it in my calculator. I'm going to divide that by 13 rather than 15. So now I need 6.51 bags. So actually I'd need to buy 7 bags. So yes, I'd need 1 more bag if I was Shay. Okay, so Shay, if I was looking at that, Shay needs to buy 1 more bag because it'd need 7 bags now. Right, question this. A is a point at least 3 centimetres away from there. Claire has asked to show me where P could be. So a point P is at least 3 centimetres from point C. Claire has asked to show the region where it could be. Her answer is shown on the grid. Well, everything on circumference on the outside of the circle is exactly 3 centimetres from C, sorry. And everything on the circumference is, so everything there is 3 centimetres away. If it's inside, it's less than 3 centimetres away. Should have shaded the outside. Okay, so that would be my answer. Right, question 5. This year's total carrots in the farm is a fifth less than last year. The total weight of the carrots grown is 6,400 tonnes. Right, so let's just try and draw this picture. So I had this much, so this was how much there was last year, and I've got a fifth less than that. So that means that this section here is how much I've had this year. So this section here would be 6,400 tonnes. So I'm going to take my 6,400 tonnes and divide it by 4. So I know that each one of these fifths must be worth 1,600. So in total, I'm going to have 5 lots of that. So my answer is a nice round number, would be 8,000 tonnes. Question A, right, this one. Find the mean of list A. So that's really easy to work out the mean of list A. So I'm just going to work out all of those numbers in list A added together, and I'm going to divide it by 4, and that will give me the mean of list A. So just again, just practicing, making sure I'm doing it really slowly, copying down exactly what I should write down. Divide that by 4. So I know that the mean of list A is 228. So the mean of list A is 228. Now it says the mean between list A and list B is 3 to 7. So I know if this one is 228, well, how many 3s would I need to get to 228? I'd need to get 76. So I now know that the mean of list B is going to be 76 times larger than 7. So that's going to give me 532. So the mean of list B is now going to be mean list B is going to be 532. So I know that if I do 586, add 400, add 367, add x, add 521, add 660, and divide it by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things, that's going to give me 532. So then I'm going to multiply both sides by 6, and I get 586, add 400, add 367, add x, add 521, add 660. It's got to be worth 3,192. So I'm going to do that on my calculator. I'm going to do 586, add 400, add 367, add x, we don't know what x is, so I'm going to leave that off, plus 521 plus 660, gives me 2,534, plus x gives me 3,192. So if I'm trying to work out what x is, I'm going to do 3,192, subtract my answer, so it tells me that x is worth 658. X is worth 658. Just make sure I write my answer on my number line. Question 7. This is like the perfect trig question. So if you just learnt trigonometry, this would be the perfect sort of thing to practice on. So here is my angle that I'm interested in. Over here, this is my opposite side. This is my hypotenuse, and this is my adjacent side. This one is adjacent to, which means next to the angle. This one's opposite my angle, and my hypotenuse is my longest side. So I'm now either going to use the sine ratio, the cosine ratio, or the tangent ratio. I've got to decide which one I'm going to use. So I'm going to use the, I care about the opposite and the adjacent. So I like the opposite, I like the adjacent, I like the opposite and the adjacent. So actually, I'm going to use my tangent ratio. So tan x equals opposite divided by adjacent. Tan x equals opposite over adjacent. Now if I'm not sure about that, it's got it here. They're not called opposite and adjacent, but this one's my opposite side, this is my adjacent side. It's on my formula sheet, so I can use that if I need to. So now I know I'm going to write down my equation. Tan x equals 9 over 5. So that gets me a mark, because I've correctly substituted into the correct ratio. So now I want to undo this tan ratio. So I'm going to use my inverse tan function. How do I do that on my calculator? I'm going to press shift and tan. Then I'm going to write that fraction 9 over 5. Just make sure I close my bracket. It doesn't like it, but I don't always close my bracket. So enter, and that gives me x is about 60.9453, so forth. It says give my answer correct in one decimal place, so my answer there would be 60.9. 60.9 is the correct answer. Right, so next question. Metal rods are made from this. Right, so we've got a bit of a problem here because this one is in grams and this one's in kilograms. So I'm going to need to do something about that in a minute. So I know that density is mass divided by volume. Density is mass divided by volume. So I'm going to think about, right, I've got to work out, I know the density, so I know that bit, and I know the volume, so I've got to work out the mass. So I'll rearrange that formula. Mass is equal to density times volume. So my density is 8 grams per centimetre cubed, and my volume is 2,500 centimetres cubed. So I'm going to do 8 times 2,500. So my mass is going to be 20,000 grams. Now, remember, I want the same unit, so I'm going to change 20,000 grams into kilograms. I know that 1 kilogram is 1,000 grams. So I'm going to divide that by 1,000. So that's going to give me 20 kilograms. So then I've got to say, right, how many 20 kilogram bars can fit into that trolley? So I'm going to do 600 divided by 20, and there'd be a total of 30 of those bars available. Question 9 then. Question 9. Now this one was a bit disappointed with my class with this, because I thought actually lots of us are confident. If it was much nicer numbers, in fact let's write a question that's easier numbers. 6x 3x minus x cubed. Then lots of you, my class, will be able to do 6 times 3, which is 18. X times x gives me x squared, minus 6 times x will give me 6. X times x to the power of 3 gives me x to the power of 4. So what's happened? I've done my numbers multiplied by each other. I've done x to the 1 times x to the 1, so it gives me 1 plus 1, which is 2. Here I've just got a number. So it's the same idea as that. So 5 times 2 would be 10, definitely. Then I've got x to the negative 1 times x to the 1. So I've got negative 1 plus 1, so that'll give me x to the 0. We'll talk about that in a second. Minus 5 times no value, and x to the negative 1 and x to the 4, so negative 1 plus 4 is going to give me x cubed. Okay, so if I'm looking at that one, that's my answer. Now, anything to the power of 0 is worth 1, so that bit is just worth 10. This bit is going to be 5x cubed. So now let's look at the format we want it in. A is worth 10, that's undeniable. It says plus b, so I need it to be, b needs to be negative 5, so I do need that sign of negative 5 in there. And my power n would be 3. Okay, my power n would be worth 3. This one, so I'm going to try and solve this equation. There's loads of different orders you can do it in. Most people would multiply by 3 first. So if you multiply both sides by 3, it means you're going to get rid of that fraction and everything becomes a bit simpler. So just by doing that, I'm going to get myself a mark. So that's going to give me 16 plus x on this side and 6x on this side. 2 times 3 is 6, so 2x times 3 is 6x. Now I've got x's on both sides. Is it easier to make plus x disappear or 6x disappear? Or it's easier to make plus x disappear. So that gives me 16 equals 5x. 16 equals 5x. So now I just need to solve that equation. So how do I get rid of multiplied by 5? I'm going to divide both sides by 5. So I've got x equals, now I'm worried I'm going to get that wrong if I do it in my head, so I'm going to type it into my calculator. 16 divided by 5 gives me 3.2. Sorry, there we go, just change that to a decimal. 3.2. Perfect. So x equals 3.2. Next question, 11. Right, this one. So there's some nice, easy marks to get here. The chance of Isaac passing his test is 0.9. So the rest of it, certainly he's going to pass or fail. So the rest of it taking me up to 1 would be 0.1. 0.75 adds something, gets me to 1. So that's going to be 0.25. This is Kerry, or Seri, I don't know how you pronounce it, I assume Kerry. Kerry is going to pass, would be 0.75, and should be fail, would be 0.25. So that's quite nice, sort of, we can do this. Now, I always think it's really good to just go through and do this process. Now I'm going to time myself. Let's get my little stopwatch going. Right, I'm going to time myself. I do the same thing every time. Right, go. So this one is pass and pass. This one will be pass and fail. This one will be fail and pass. This one will be fail and fail. So I've got to do 0.9 times 0.75. 0.9 times 0.75. Here I'm going to do 0.9 times 0.25. Here I'm going to do 0.1 times 0.75. Here I'm going to do 0.1 times 0.25. And so I'm going to now just type all these things into my calculator. 0.9 times 0.75. I could write that, let's write it as 27 over 40, let's do that. This one, 0.9 times 0.25, that's going to be 9 over 40. This one, 0.1 times 0.75 is 3 over 40. And this one is going to be 1 over 40. I'll just type it in because I feel like I've invested. That's going to give me 1 over 40. Now that whole process has taken me 1 minute and 8 seconds-ish. But actually I've done all the work for this question, so that's 3 minutes worth of questions. And I've done all the workings already. Work out the probability that only one of Isaac or Kerry will pass their theory test. So this is they've both passed. Pass. That's both. That's not going to help us. We're not interested in that. This one is just Isaac. This one's just Isaac, so I am interested in just Isaac passing. This one's just Kerry passing, so I'm interested in that one too. And this one is neither of them passing, so I don't care about that. So actually, I've just got to work out 9/40, add 3/40. I can just do it as fractions or whatever format you choose to do. 9/40, add 3/40. Now, hopefully, you're thinking, please, that's just 12/40. So that will give me 12/40, which is a correct answer. It gives me 3/10, which is the same correct answer, or it gives me 0.3. All of these things are correct. It doesn't say anywhere, give your answer in its simplest form, give it as a decimal. All of those things are fine. My mark scheme says 0.3 or equivalent. So anything that's worth 0.3 could be 30%. Any of those things would be correct. Right, this one, question 12. I've got my box plot, so I'm going to need to draw myself a diagram. So I've got lowest age at 15, so lowest age at 15, so that's going to be there. I've got a highest age at 75, so 75, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so 75. There's pressure when you're trying to do it in front of loads of people. 26, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 26. My upper quartile's at 48, so I'm just going to count back 2 places. There's 48, and my median's at 32. So there we go. There's my box plot. There we go. That's 3 relatively easy marks. Work out an estimate for the number of these gym members with an age between 26 and 48 years. Well, 28 years is here. So that's my lower quartile. So that's a quarter of the way through my people. And 48 is here. So it's a strange coincidence that they always talk about some of these important values. So my so that's 0 of the way through. This is a quarter, this is 3/4, this is a half, 1/4, a half, 3/4, and all of the way through. Now it says there's 44 members in my gym. So this is 0 of those members. This will be a quarter of those 44 members, so that will be 11 members. This is half of that, so that will be 22 members. This one's 3/4, so that will be 33 members. And this one will be 44 members. So what's the number of gym members between there? It will be between 33 and 11. So that's 22 members, with half of my members are between my lower quartile and my upper quartile. At least one gym member is 32 years old because the median is 32. As we have an even number of terms, there will be 2 in the middle. There'll be 2 numbers in the middle. So we could have a 31 and a 33, in which case the median would be 32. Okay, so we don't know. There might be 2 people that are 32 and 32. So we're not sure. Okay, so if you're looking at a question like that, are they right, are they wrong? Well, we don't know. So we're not, it could be 31 and 33, it could be 30 and 34, but we do know that the average of those 2 ages must be 32, but we don't know what they are, so we can't say for certain. Question 13. Right, so this is a lovely question. Loads of my class absolutely nailed this. So I'm just going to draw this out. Just be careful with signs. I'm going to do 3x plus 1 multiplied by x minus 2. Now I always try and include the sign on the inside of the box. So I've got 3x squared plus 3x minus 6x minus 2. And if I collect together my like terms, I've got 3x squareds minus 3x's minus 2. Okay, now I've got to take that term and I'm going to multiply that by x plus 3. So what does that give me? It gives me 3x cubed minus 3x squared minus 2x's plus 9x squared minus 9x's minus 6. So then what have I got? I've got 3x cubed. I've got 9x squared minus 3x squared, so that gives me plus, hold on, have I done wrong here? Right, so hopefully you can see my mistake. So this is going to be 1x. So that's just x times 1 gives me 1x. I was looking at that 3, so that's why I've done something stupid there. So that 1x minus 5x is going to be minus 5x. So then this is going to change that to minus 5x. And that's going to be minus 15 lots of x. So let's start again. So I've got 3x cubed plus 4x squared minus 17x minus 6. Now that is not a learning point. I've made a mistake on purpose. That is just me not paying attention. So hopefully when you're watching the video, you're like screaming at me going, that's not right. So it is everyone will make mistakes. It's just trying to rush through. Always happens when you sort of say, my class do really well at this. So clearly they haven't learned from me. Right. So we're on to question 14. Right, pay attention, pay attention. There are year 11 students, there are 18 year 11 students, I think. One student awarded first prize, a different student awarded second prize. Right, so year 11, so my first option is there's 18 different people who could have won the prize. So now one of those people has already got first prize, so there's only 17 people left, and they could win the second prize. So we're sorted. Right, in year 10, same sort of concept. There are 10 students, so that 10 people could win the first prize, and 9 people could win the second prize. So that gives me 306, and that gives me 90. Double check that. Clearly I've made some mistakes. 18 times 17, 306, and that's 10 times. I don't really know why I'm going through the motions. Right, 10. So I know there's 306 combinations of this, and there's 90 combinations of this. So for each of those 306 combinations, that could happen. For each of those, the second one could happen. For each of that, the third one could happen. So my total number of combinations would be 306 times 90. And that gives me a nice round number. Hold on, no it doesn't. That's 90 times 90. Oh dear. 27,540. 27,540 different combinations. Right, this one, Regan's. Okay, so we're going to try and draw some of these lines. I'm going to draw x plus y equals 6. I'm going to draw y equals 2. I'm going to draw x equals negative 1. I'm going to draw y equals a half of x minus 3. So they're the lines I'm going to draw. Y equals 2 is an easy one, because everywhere along that line, the y value is 2. Now, I'm going to draw dashed lines because I should. It doesn't matter if you do solid lines. The mark scheme says it doesn't matter. If, strictly speaking, if it's greater than or equal to, we should have that dashed line. X is greater than negative 1. So that goes through here. I'm going to draw x plus, right, so if I've got x plus y, I'm just going to pick some numbers. If x equals 0, what number adds 0 gets me to 6? 9. If x equals 1, y must equal 1 plus something gets me to 6, that's going to be 5. If x equals 2, then y equals 2 plus something, so 2 plus 4 gives me 6. So I know that actually it's everything along this line. I'm just going to draw that. Should really have a ruler, but grab the nearest thing. Now this one, y equals a half x plus minus 3. So just draw myself a little table. We can use this. I've got x, I'm just going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So a half of 0 minus 3 gives me minus 3. 1 times half gives me half, so that's giving me minus 2.5. 2 times a half gives me 1. Minus 3 is negative 2. Negative 1.5. Half of 4 is 1. Subtract 3 gives me negative 1. So I could just plot some of this. So I've got 4, negative 1. I've got 2, negative 2, I've got 0, negative 3. So it's everything there along this line. So here is that. So I'm looking for a region. So I know that x plus y is going to be less than 6. So x plus y. So like 0. Let's pick a point, 0, 0, and I'll decide which side of my line it is. So 0 plus 0, is that less than 6? Yes, it is. So I need it to be underneath this line. So I need it to be underneath this line. 0, 0. So y is greater than 2. So it's got to be above this line because 0 is not greater than 2. X has got to be greater than negative 1. So yeah, 0, 0 is on that side. So it needs to be on this side of this line. So actually I know it's going to be below that line, above this line. So it's only this bit here that really matters. That's my correct region. But then that's a bit weird because it will say, well, why do you need that extra line then? So if I was doing that, why would I need that extra line? Well, I don't, because actually if I look at the second part of this question, I remember when the first time I saw this, I was very confused because I was like, well, that doesn't make any difference. I can remove one of the 4 inequalities so that region R doesn't change. So this line here doesn't have any effect on my region. It's already bounded by this one, so it's stopping it. So which one can I change? I can change y because a half x minus 3. That one doesn't change this thing because it's only bounded by this line, and this line. Right, question 16. So I know the volume of this one and the volume of this one. So I could work out the volume scale factor. Now, because it's a volume, it's going to be 3-dimensional. So I suspect when I do 1,680 divided by 120, I'm going to get a cube number. Let's have a look. Divided by 120. Oh, I don't. I get 14. So that's not a cube number. So something I was sort of expecting, but even if it's not, I definitely know that's the volume scale factor because that one has got a volume 14 times bigger than this one. So I know that the length scale factor is going to have to be the cubed root of 14. So the length scale factor will be the cube root of 14. So how do I do the cube root on this one? So I press the shift and there, so I'm going to go up to that little box. So the cube root of 14, and that gives me about 2.41-ish. So remember, I'm just going to leave that in my calculator. That is going to be the thing that is the value. So 2.41. So then I'm going to work out height. So my height scale factor. So I know that h times by 2.41 gives me 15. So if I wanted to work out h, I'm going to do 15 divided by 2.41. Now luckily, I know that 2.41 is my answer. So I'm just going to press answer. So that gives me an answer of about 6.22. 6.223698. So my height would be 6.2 centimetres. 6.2 centimetres. The surface area, well hold on, so I know that the volume scale factor was 14. So my length scale factor would be the cubed root of 14. So my area scale factor is going to be my length scale factor, the cube root of 14, squared. Okay, so the cube root. So now, if I'm looking at this, I don't actually need, because it says the exact value, I can't do any rounding, so I'm just going to write that as my answer. The cube root of 14 squared. Yeah. If I wanted to, I could maybe write that as 14 to the 2/3. That's also the same thing. But I don't need to write two answers in there, because if I write an incorrect one, I'm going to lose marks. So I could say the cube root of 14 squared. That's what I would write. Question 17. Right, so I've got this thing. So there's my equation, y equals k to the power of x. So my x value is -1, my y value is 2.5. So I'm just going to write them in. 2.5 equals k to the power of -1. Now k to the power of -1 means 1 over k. So I know that 1 over k is equal to 2.5. So if I times both sides by k, I get 2.5k equals 1. Yeah, so I'm just going to times both sides by 2.5 like I was solving an equation. So times both sides by k. So let's write that again. 2.5k equals 1. So now, to get k on its own, I'm going to divide both sides by 2.5. Looks confusing, but you have got a calculator. So 1 divided by 2.5, and that gives me 2/5. So k is 2/5, or 0.4, or any of those things. It's also the reciprocal of k. So like the reciprocal of 5 over 2 would be 2 over 5. So you can do it without a calculator. But we're allowed to use a calculator. So again, I'm just going to leave one answer there. Question 18. Right, the start of this year. Right, so we know it's a constant. So I know I'm going to times by something. So to work out the next year, I do this year times by something. So I know that 2,500 times by k gives me 3,250. So I know that k is going to be 3,250 divided by 2,500. So 3,250 divided by 2,500. Now that is a really easy mark on my paper that not many of my class got. So I know that every year I multiply by 1.3. Okay, so I know every year I multiply by 1.3. So I'm just going to write down some years here. I've got 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027. Now I might have already written too many. I'm just going to stop there because right. So I started off in the year 2022. I started off with 2,500. So I'm going to go 2,500 times by 1.3. So in the year 2023, I've got 3,250. So then I'm going to times that by 1.3 again, and that gives me 4,225. Times that by 1.3, and that gives me 5,492.5. So what year was it greater than 5,400? Well, that year there, 2025. Okay, so what year was it? Now, obviously I could go further and check different amounts for different years, but that is how I would get my answer to that. So my answer is 2025. Yeah, so I've showed it there. Right, question 19. Question 19. Right, so GEB. So I'm going to work out the size of angle G to E to B. So I'm trying to work out that angle there. Now, I'm just going to draw the triangle I want to use then. So GEB. So B, G and E. So that's the triangle I'm going to want to use. That's the triangle I'm going to want to use, that one there. Now I might need to work out some other stuff to get there. So first off, I'm just going to use that base triangle. So I'm going to do G to F to E. Now I know that this one here is 10, and I know that this here is 50. And then I'm going to work out the back one. So I'm going to say B to G to H. Now there are different ways to view this, but I'm just going to got that. So I know that because this length here is 10, then this length here will also be 10. Right, so I've got lots of bits of trigonometry. Right, so first one, I'm going to work out G to E. G to E. So I know that this is the hypotenuse, this is the adjacent, and this is the opposite. So SOHCAHTOA. Which one am I going to use? So I'm interested in the adjacent and the hypotenuse. So I'm going to use my cosine ratio. So cos 50 equals adjacent, which is 10 over hypotenuse. So if I rearrange that, it will be 10 divided by cos 50. Make sure your calculator's in the right mode. Remember, if your answer's not coming up and it doesn't look right, then it might be that you're not in the right mode. Remember, sine 30 is a half. So there's my answer for my hypotenuse is 15.557. So I know that G to E is 15.557. So I've got that bit there for that one. for this bit, what do I care about? I've got sol, ca, ter. Now if you notice, I'm writing down lots of things. I'm interested in B to G here, so I want to know the opposite. This is my adjacent, this is my hypotenuse, so opposite and adjacent. Yeah, so I'm going to be using my tan ratio. Tan 32 equals opposite divided by 10. So I'm going to do 10 times tan 32. So that gives me about 6.2486. So I know that this bit here is 6.2486. So I'm trying to work out the angle GEB. So I'm trying to work out this one. This is my adjacent side, this is my opposite. Again, which of my my trigonometric ratios would I use? I've got O, I've got A, O and A. So I'm going to say tan x equals tan theta, let's say theta because it's a bit more professional, is my opposite side divided by my adjacent side. So tan theta equals 6.2486 over 15.557. So I'm going to go inverse tan. So to work at my answer, I'm going to go theta is the inverse of the tan of that ratio. So shift and tan of my fraction, which is the answer over, and that gives me an answer of 21.86. So it says give your answer to the nearest degree, so that will give me 22 degrees. So that gives me an answer of 22 degrees, so it's a bit of an angle. Right. Question 20. Right, question 20. So there are always marks to get on questions like this. The diagram is divided like ratio 1 to 3. So the gradient of line L is root 5. So I know for every one square we go across, I go root 5 up. So I'm now going to go that, I'm going to work out that the gradient of the line A to B. So I know that they are perpendicular lines. Do I know they're perpendicular lines? Let's have a look. No, actually they're not perpendicular. I was expecting them to be perpendicular lines, but they're not. What do I know? So I know that from this point here is 0, 20, and this point here is, this point here is 0, 12, and this point here is 20, 0. So to go between those 2 points, I've got to go 12 down, and I've got to go 20 to the right. Now I've divided that into the ratio 1 to 3, so I've got 1 part and 3 parts. So if I wanted to go that distance, I'm just going to go 3 down, and I'm going to go 5 to the right. 3 down and 5 to the right. So from that point there, I've got to go 3 down and 5 to the right. So that means that point D is 5, 9. Point D is 5, 9. So that gets me a mark for getting 5, 9. Next bit then. So I know that if the gradient of that line is root 5, so I've got y equals root 5x plus c, and I know it goes through that point there, which is 9, 5. So when x is 5, y is 9. So I'm going to have 9 equals root 5 times 5 plus c. So now I can work out my y-intercept. So I can just substitute in those values. So I've got 9 equals 5 root 5 plus c. So I know that c is going to be 9 subtract 5 lots of root 5. Type into my calculator. 9 minus 5 lots of root 5, which gives me about negative 2.18-ish. Okay. So then it's, if I want to work out point F, I've got y equals root 5x minus 2.18. I know that's the case. And I know that I've got this point f, so when x is negative 2, y is f, so I know that f is equal to root 5 times negative 2 minus 2.18. So I'm going to say plus 5 times root 5 times negative 2. Put that in brackets to make sure I'm not making. So I'm going to do root 5 times negative 2 plus my answer. So that gives me f is equal to negative 6.65-ish. And I've just got to prove that f is less than negative 6, which I've done there. Right, this one, actually quite easy for what it is. So I know that in order to solve this equation, I'm going to have x equals negative a half. So why does that work? Because I know that 2x is going to be worth negative 1. So x is going to be like negative 1 over 2. Here, I know that x is going to be 4/3. How do I know that's going to work? I know that 3x is going to equal 4. So x will equal 4/3. So I know that if I was going to plot a quadratic, it's going to go through at negative a half, and it's going to go through at 4/3. If I expand out my brackets, I'll get 6x squared. So let's just do that for you. 2x plus 1, 3x minus 4. This is my downfall earlier on, but forgive me. 6x squared minus 5x minus 4. So it's a positive quadratic, so it's going to go like this. Right, so it says, when is my line less than 0? So it's not less than 0. No. It's equal to 0 there. Less, equal to 0, more. So the only time it's less than 0 is when x is between negative a half and 4/3. But actually, not that bad. If I just wrote down those two values, I'd get a mark on that question. So lots of my class expanded it out, but they are the critical values, as they call them. Last one, a circle has got x squared plus y, so I've got x squared plus y squared equals the radius squared. So I now know that the radius must be the square root of 16, which is 4. So now I've got a circle, centre of the origin, so centre of the origin, and it is going to go, it's going to go through. Okay, so I've got my circle, centre 0, 0, because it's x. Yeah. If, for example, and so that top kids, if I had x plus 3 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals 25, I know that my radius would be 5, and I know that my centre would be negative 3, 2. Okay, but that's not, we don't need that for this question. Right, so I know that my centre was 0, 0, and it had a radius of 4. But now it's translated 0, negative 3, so that means it's translated 3 units down. So now my centre would no longer be at 0, 0, and my centre would be at negative, let's go to here, let's go there, 0, negative 3. So what would happen, so my radius of 4 would take me up to 1, it would take me around here, so this point here would be negative 4, negative 3. Going to take me off, so I can only apologise for my circle. That is poor, but it's definitely a circle. This point here would need to be 4 units below this, so that would be 0, negative 7, and over here this bit would be 4, negative 3. So it only asks you to say sketch B, the coordinates with the centre of the circle would be there, and where it meets the y-axis, so that would be negative 1 and negative 7. So yours is similar but different. Okay, question 23. Find the size of angle Q to R to S. All right, so I've got to find that angle there. So we can do that in 2 parts. Okay, so I'm just going to draw my extra line in, and I think this will make it a lot easier for us. So I'm going to work out Q to R to P, and I'm going to work out. Okay, right, so I've got to split that into 2 parts of an angle, So I'm going to use this thing here as Q, P and R, and I'm going to use this one here as 10, 60 and 9, so that is P and S and R. So I know they're not triangles, but I've made them into triangles. So first off, I know that if this is 105 and this is 5, once I've worked out this length, I'll be able to use the sine rule. Here I'm going to need to do the cosine rule. So I know that S squared equals 9 squared plus 10 squared minus 2 times 9 times 10 times cos 60. So let's just make sure we're happy with that. So the cosine rule, if you're not sure about it, a squared equals b squared plus c squared. So if I'm trying to find this length here on my formula sheet, that one squared is this one squared plus this one squared minus 2 times b times c times the angle between them. So I've done that. B squared plus c squared minus 2 times b times c times the cos of the angle between them. So you can literally just type that into my calculator. So as soon as I've written down that fact, I can get a mark. So you're just substituting into your calculator 2 times 9 times 10 cos 60 times cos 60, and that gives me s squared is equal to 91. So s would be the square root of 91. Square 91. So I've got that. So now I can use the sine rule to work out this angle. So sine r over the opposite side. So sine r over r is the same as sine 60 over root 91. So I can rearrange that. Sine r equals 10 lots of sine 60 over root 91. So fraction, so do 10 times sine 60 over root 91. So that is sine r. So sine r is that. So to work out the angle, I'm going to do the inverse sine of that answer, and that tells me it's about 65.2 degrees. So that bit there is about 65.2 degrees. So that gets me, so I've got, in terms of marks, I've got 1 for seeing 90, I've got 1 for that bit, I've got 1 for root 91, I've got 1 for getting to there, so I'm on my last page, and I've substituted and I've got 3 marks so far. I'm going to use the same logic. Well, I know that this one is also root 91 up there, because it's p to r, which is what we've worked out in the last one. So now I know that sine, what do I want? Sine r equals over 5 is equal to sine 105 over root 91. So sine r equals 5 lots of sine 105 over root 91. So again, I'm just type that into my calculator. 5 times sine 105 over root 91. If it says syntax error, it's just because you haven't closed your brackets there. So that is sine r. So I'm going to do the inverse sine of that 0.50628 blah blah blah. So shift sine of that answer. And that tells me that angle r on this bit is about 30.4 degrees, 416 degrees. So give it to the nearest degree. So I've got about 65 degrees for this bit here, 65.2. And I've got about 30.416 for that bit there. So what is the size of that to the nearest degree? So pop them together and we get about, 95, sorry, about 95 degrees. Okay, so my mark scheme says anything between 95 and 96 is correct. So I've got 95 degrees. Where does that 95 come from? 65 add 30 is 95. Okay, and that is that paper done. Thanks for sticking with me.